Hey everyone, Ben here. Welcome to another episode of the Stellar Work podcast. This time I'm joined by the CEO and co-founder of Wandelbots, Piechnick. We already had an episode about the agnostic operating system for robots that Wandelbots provides, but this time it's about founding tech companies in Europe. We talk about the ecosystem, the recent changes in the economic playing field, and how entrepreneurs can use these changes to their advantage. Let's dive in.
Hey Christian, welcome to the Stellar Work podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome. We have this habit on the show that before we start digging into the interesting topics, you're going to introduce yourself to our audience. So why don't we start with that?
Yeah, so I am Christian. I'm co-founder and CEO of Wanderbots. So we're one of the leading startups in the field of robotics. I learned programming very early, studied computer science, then started my PhD in software engineering. Never finished since we created the company.
So you founded out of university?
Yes, so technically yes. I didn't finish my PhD because of that. But so in 2017, we were finishing our research career and then start building the company instead, which was a very good idea.
I can imagine, yeah. I was looking around the new building and I also remember the old one. Where you at? So it's going pretty good. It looks pretty cool, like robots everywhere.
Yes, so and that's basically what we're working on. So there are approximately 3.5 million robots out there today, which is super small number compared to what people typically expect from the robots out there. And we're working hard to make it tenfold, maybe 100-fold in robot installation. So I'm pretty convinced that in the next 20 years, driven by AI, robots will change the world to an extent how smartphones and computers changed the world in the past 20 years. So the planet will change significantly, and we want to drive that with a positive impact.
So everyone's on the beach while the robots are working for us?
So maybe. Yeah, it is super interesting. So today, I think statistically speaking, do you have an idea on what percentage globally on labor is automated in manufacturing?
Globally?
Maybe to give you a hint.
It's a one-digit number.
If I recall correctly, I think the forecast in 2014 by, I think it was Forbes magazine, was that by 2025, approximately 25% of all manufacturing jobs are automated. What do you think? Where do we stand?
Some one-digit number, like 5% globally.
0.9. So
it's 0.9.
Yeah, so more than 99% is still done manually. And just to give you an idea on what growth potential robots have. And it's ridiculous that people today at scale think robots are stealing their jobs. Yeah. We have a different problem. So I think in Germany alone, 24, I think 700,000 open positions could not be filled due to labor shortage.
Were those positions even like, could you fill them with robots?
Definitely, yeah. So and most of them, definitely. So how many people do you know, young folks, that say, I want to become a welder or I want to become a painter or a carpenter?
No one.
Yeah, so
or maybe
you say maybe not no one, but so super small number. Yeah. The number is like, and if you look at the demographic change in all major industrial countries, the problem is getting worse and worse, and it's can be predicted pretty well, I think, for the next 18 years at least, what we have available in workforce. So if we want to solve that and remain an industrial nation that's relevant on a global scale, automation is one of the very few technologies that can help us solve that problem.
Maybe let's roll back a little bit because I feel we're already super deep into the topic. I had a couple of episodes about the European startup ecosystem, founding tech companies here, but I never had someone who actually founded a tech company within Europe. That's why I asked you out to come on the interview, and I'm very glad that you're here. What would you say? Like, have you got connections to like international founders who founded maybe in a different European country or maybe in the US? Have you had like peers where you could exchange? I meant like, could you give us a little bit of an insight of how it's maybe different to found a tech company within Europe or within Germany compared to founding a tech company, let's say in Silicon Valley?
Competence on a technical level of the people coming here out of university is not worse than people. So if you look at TU Dresden, the skill set and abilities on a technical level of people graduating here is comparable to MIT, Stanford, whatsoever.
Really?
Definitely. Also, if you look at research being done at those universities, not Dresden alone. So we look at Munich, Stuttgart, Berlin. So we have so many really good technical universities in Germany where you have a extreme level of competence from the people. But there is no, let's say, founder's DNA being part of that education. Every time I go to Silicon Valley, I come back fully pumped up because this whole ecosystem and how it works is so much focused around being creative, spinning business ideas, like the drive to change the world. And I think this is something you very rarely get at a German university.
So how would you work your way around it when founding, let's say, in Germany, and you're not having that environment?
Yes. It's almost impossible to build. Those ecosystems are created not by design. They start so it was a couple of years ago where Mr. Müller was still the mayor of Berlin. I heard him on a panel saying that Berlin become one of the top 10 startup ecosystems because they have such a great transfer from universities to the industry. That's bullshit. So it was the Zamba brothers and Zalando and
the Rocket Internet.
Internet. So they created a shitload of money and they reinvested the money into the ecosystem. And then other companies were created, investors came, and this is how you get the ball rolling. So the Silicon Valley is same thing. So you have commercial success of individuals and they stay there and reinvest the money more or less into the ecosystem. And this is how it's created. So politics cannot basically build those ecosystems.
So it's basically the amount of risk capital that is available in a specific market.
It's more the DNA of entrepreneurs kind of inspiring others. I think that's how those things are created. And coming back to deep tech, I think this is what we're very good at. Very few people know that Dresden, despite being a beautiful historical city, is the largest site for semiconductors in Europe. So
it's Saxony Valley, right?
Yes. So Silicon Saxony. And we have Silicon Saxony, and we have like University of Excellence. Last week, there were 5 excellence research clusters being granted. Frank Fitzek, for instance, who inspired me, he leads with SETI, the only cluster of excellence with a robotics focus. And it's those individuals that inspire people. And since especially also in Eastern Germany, I think becoming an entrepreneur, creating your own business, and all of those thoughts are not naturally in the DNA of the people living here. So it requires people starting something, inspiring others, and then also having the focus to develop the ecosystem by what you do.
You already mentioned the ecosystem, and I'm kind of curious because now everyone's like on each investor call, you would hear about the macroeconomic struggle that is going on, which basically is just a nice word for Trump sometimes, and all the tariff situation that is going on in the world. And what I see here is that within Europe, you would see a lot of capital reallocated towards pro-European companies, towards getting a more interconnected market. You have the EU Inc. initiative that was founded. And I was wondering, like, Wandelbots seems to be connected to the industry, and that is very much globally. How would you say is the impact on the current market situation on Wandelbots providing solutions for producing companies?
Super interesting question because generally for us, it's a very good situation.
It's good.
And let me explain.
Okay,
Right?
go ahead.
So I think there is so if you look at, for instance, the situation in production of let's say production sites of German companies, of course.
Those are mainly car manufacturers.
Yeah, car manufacturers, suppliers, but the whole electronics industry, you have a giant portion of, let's say, small and medium-sized producing enterprises, producing all goods in general industry.
The so-called German Mittelstand.
The German Mittelstand, exactly. And of course, currently most of them are not doing well. So I think there are a lot of layoffs economically. The prediction is not great. And you're coming from Bavaria, since you have a very famous food blogger living there who would say it's all the fault of Robert Habeck. But so to be very honest, I don't think so. So German industry basically we're more or less from a high level perspective still producing goods like we did 30 years ago. Technology is the same. Processes are more or less the same.
Now, how does it impact? Is it the market shift? Like, do the goods go somewhere else?
It's a giant technology shift, and companies have failed to basically stay on top. So the German virtues, if you would like the German brand, so to say, it's all about precision, quality, efficiency, German engineering, those virtues. Sad news is like how to be efficient, how to be precise, how to engineer. That fundamentally changed in the last 20 years, driven by software. And now there is the rise of AI. And AI seems to be a buzzword for many people. But AI applied correctly gives you efficiency boosts, lets you create products with in a time frame with a quality no one would ever have imagined what's possible today. The problem is that you need to invest into your infrastructure. You need to have the company ready, not only from an organizational point of view or governance.
But you mean like data centers? Or...
Yes. Yeah. Mindset, DNA, applying those technologies correctly. And I think if I largely look high level at German manufacturing companies, they have failed to basically start early, transforming their companies to become digital companies, to become AI natives, so to say. And these days, you can really see that companies that have invested this effort, time and money in order to make themselves ready for this, they're now accelerating extremely fast. So some companies are doing extremely well and others not. But I guess that's a normal cycle. So companies come and go. And even giant corporates, like global companies, it can be so quick these days that they get into look at Intel, to not name a German company. So if you don't innovate constantly and fast enough, and then those technological disruptions happen, they will vanish. But I see it as a giant opportunity, and that's why, coming back to the point, how is it for us? Wanderbots has now invested 6 years in developing the world's first operating system for robots, so like Windows for robots. And if I look at the domestic market, for us, it was always super challenging. People were interested, but really like the pressure was not there to innovate quick enough, right? So
domestic is the German market.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for that changed. So nowadays, those companies, they are forced to evolve in order to remain or get back their competitive advantage, so to say. And consequently, all the conversation, all the customer interactions we now have with German enterprises are extremely fast, very goal-oriented, and at scale. So we're not talking about small projects anymore. This is.
What would you say is the tipping point? Like, what kickstarted that shift in mindset?
ChatGPT, I think, and I'm thinking about this very often, but I think ChatGPT, because it became, this was the first time where AI became more or less mainstream. So my kids work with ChatGPT. Everyone does that, right? And it started in private life, so people were starting talking to AI, generating images, generating music tracks. And at the beginning, it was a funny gimmick. And then people started realizing how significant they can improve their private life, organizing trips with AI, organizing the vast majority of their private life. And now think about what you can do in a professional life.
Yeah.
And I think last year, Microsoft was publishing a very interesting, sounds boring, but a very interesting case study with McKinsey. So what they have built is an AI agent, an email agent, which when a customer request comes in, the agent analyzes the request, draws some background information on the sender, and finds the best suitable partner within McKinsey and Company for that client request. Sounds super boring, but I think they have increased the client onboarding time by 30% with that agent, and reduced the administrative overhead around the client onboarding process by 45%. And McKinsey is a giant company. They're a consultancy firm, so I would also imagine they have tried to optimize the internal processes.
Of course.
And if such a small tool comes in and can drive double-digit percentage efficiency gains in those like central processes, just imagine what AI can do for manufacturing companies. But those companies need to make their shop floors ready to let AI operate on it.
I mean, yes. And at the same time, I'm wondering, like, if all the security concerns and where the data centers are located and decoupling from US. Yeah, I don't know if you've heard about that infamous kill switch on the F-35. And all that debate leads to a lot of like, do we want to store our data in US data centers? Would they be able to send the data somewhere else without letting us know about it? So I was wondering if that doesn't lead to a more fractal market that is way harder to conquer, because everybody builds those domestic regulatories that you need to jump over.
Yes, but it's a great opportunity for Europe to grow up. So definitely there are super significant dependencies. And of course, companies like Microsoft. So I heard a nice statistics that I think more than 80% on global enterprise processes run on Excel. So if you would take Microsoft Excel out, 80% of the global economy would be fucked. Of course, there is a significant dependency, but I think now this is the first time we really feel, and the current discussion we have with the US with exporting goods makes everyone aware that without the right critical infrastructure being under the control of Europe, the situation didn't change. It just becomes very apparent that the vast majority of our central processes, we depend on other regions in the world, and they have a lot of power over us. And nothing great ever came out of comfort zone. So Europe is currently pulled out of comfort zone, and I think that's a very good thing to improve from there.
Yeah, I think so too. Have you noticed an increase in, let's say, variants of software or product at Wandelbots from a more fractured market that we're having at the moment?
I think so. My personal perception in the past was always like, Wanderbots is now 7 years old, and I've seen so many competitors come and go. I think from when we created Wanderbots in my first fundraising round, I was challenged with, what are you doing different than that company and that company? I think from all the competitors back then, I think no one is left. But my experience was a German large enterprise. They would rather work with a US-based startup, because there is this aura around Silicon Valley and what they can do and all of that. I think that changed. So I think the perception, especially with German managers and decision makers, it becomes pretty clear that also for the supply chain, for them, is absolutely key. And in times of Ukraine war, of the financial crisis we had, and all the challenges we had around COVID, like everyone understood that staying in control of your supply chain is a critical superpower, and key technologies like ours for the heart of a manufacturing company, which is manufacturing and production, and better comes from Europe if you're a European company.
I'm wondering, like, we're already into the topic, and I see a lot of like initiatives to like buy pro-European companies, buy from them, or hire agencies that are based in Europe. Make sure to have your servers here in Europe. Like everyone is moving away from Gmail and now using Proton and all of that. And so I think this could really boost the tech ecosystem in Europe. And I'm wondering, like, if you would found a new company, let's say Wandelbots isn't there, and you would be at the brim of founding your tech company here in Europe, and you could like choose a couple of things to change in the European ecosystem for founders, like in a structural sense. What would that be?
Yeah. Generally, it's typically things that are not too easy to change. So I think Europe, Germany, as the economically the largest country in Germany, we're not a nation of risk takers. So and we're not very progressive in terms of innovation. So we don't have a culture to lead technical innovations. A lot of historic innovations come from Germany, so they were invented here, but they were not commercialized here. So many things were commercialized on other planets of the world, and that has to do with are we willing to take risks in order to evolve as an economical region? And that's also the reason why we are always running behind technical trends.
Risk in a sense of capital allocation, or risk in a sense of like entering new markets, challenging the status quo, the regulatory body of the market.
Innovating and disrupting your own business and your own economy, because that's necessary for progress, right? The world is changing at a pace we've never seen before. And in order to stay on top of the list, to be part of the wave and not following the wave, you need to be very fast and adopting technologies. And in the moment you're putting your corporate money into technological trends, at the moment you don't know whether this will be successful. So there is a risk involved. And I think the main difference in doing business as a startup, and we are active in the US, we're active in Asia, and we're active in Europe. So I have a very good understanding on the different types of cultures. It's like in the US, it's very often a decision between upside and downside. And if the upside is large enough, also eventual downsides are considered to be acceptable. And in Germany, it's like more or less independent on the eventual upside, but the downside must be low enough. So if the risk is too high, even though if you have a giant upside, we don't do it. So you would need to bring a lot of reference cases being successful in other industries. And this is something which leads to the fact that we don't have, that OpenAI is an American company, right? So that, and of course, with Mistral, we at least have a European company that's maybe not as fast and large as OpenAI, but at least one global player which is considered to be a competitor of OpenAI.
Yes.
But what France did was giving a vision for the country. So I think that's what they're really good at. It's not only the money they have put onto those topics, it's basically giving a vision. And that's a leadership duty. So we need, and that's what I think is lacking in Germany, for instance. So for the past decades, we were really good at managing the country more or less.
Administrating. It felt like administrating.
Administrating the status quo. But what we more and more we're losing is a vision. So where do we want to go as a nation? And I think overall, over Europe, what we would need is a vision, a future picture on where we want to go, because we have so many hardworking, super smart, brilliant people, but we're lost in a lot of regulations, discussions, fights, and I think also
And eventually they will move out. They would move to the US, which is becoming way harder now. But they would move out to where the capital is, where the mindset is right, where the mentality of founding like tech companies, where they find probably their peers.
Yeah. I think so, and we need people showing direction. And I'm not saying this should be robotics or AI or whatever it is. I would be happy to. I would accept any vision, but this is how you drive a country forward. I think, like in terms of innovation, like drawing a clear picture on where we want to go, and then really mean it by putting resources and efforts, changing regulations so that goal can be reached.
My final question, because we're slowly going to the end of the show, is like, if you were about to found a tech company, what would your strategy be to leverage the current market situation in order to gain the most out of it?
Oh, that really depends, of course, on the industry and the economy you're in, right? So currently, so the typical way of many startups is, especially in the B2B sector, it's not. So I know nothing about B2C, and I wouldn't advise. So if you're from B2C, don't listen to my advice. I have no clue. But
just keep the podcast. We're going to pump the numbers up.
But for B2B, I think in the past, the way for many startups is to build prototypes, to really build MVPs quickly, test them with customers. And in order to test them with customers, you're more or less dependent on innovation budgets or whatever. So it's a chicken egg problem typically. So you need to have something so they let you in, but in order to have something, you need to be let in. I think innovation budgets was a good proper way in order to get to the first milestones, to get to an MVP in the first place. That really matters. Those budgets are gone. So, which is also a good thing for us, because now we are on the real budgets, not the innovation budgets anymore. So, but everything that comes with increasing productivity, everything that comes with decreasing cost. So all around efficiency and making those companies future proof. There's a lot of money available still, because those companies need to improve, they need to innovate, and they need to involve in order to stay in business. So everything you provide right now, which helps them doing that, they let you in much faster than in the past, because they are under pressure. And this is a giant chance for many technology startups these days to really push their innovations super fast.
I mean, the past strategy was to create an MVP, move to the US, benefit from that very good connected market in the US with all the different states, and then conquer Europe, like the cluttered European market, from the United States, and just come back in, And do you think that strategy is valid now as well? Or do you think it becomes easier to conquer the European market by staying in Europe?
Yeah. So I have mixed emotions. So we work in the US, we work with Microsoft, we work with NVIDIA as the main partner. So they are all American companies, and we work with the headquarters. So we also work with the US teams there, and not necessarily with the German teams. But something that drives me, one of the things that drives me out of bed in the morning is not, so I'm not motivated too much by money or fame or whatsoever. what drives me is to try to build a global relevant player out of Dresden. So I feel a lot of responsibility for the region, not only Dresden, not only Saxony, not even Germany, but for Europe as a place. I think here in Europe, I'm so proud of many virtues we have, especially these days. That's why it's sad that companies like SAP kind of even betray all the great things we have created in the past years, just because they're so opportunistic. That I would like to help that Europe remains globally and economically competitive region. Because only if you are health of the economy is the foundation for every advantage we have on a society. If that goes away, you see what happens, right?
Like culture, care work, everything that, like infrastructure.
Yeah. So in Germany, we also have the problem. So there's this general feeling on the economic downturn, and that's why so many people think it's a good idea to vote for Nazis. And me personally, also for my kids, and I think like the German AfD, that's a big threat to the future of this country and the future of my kids and also my personal future. I think and this, so economic health is the foundation to kind of drive a positive future.
Also to stay sane. It helps to stay sane if you don't have economic struggles.
Yes, yeah, sane is a good word. So I think this is a trend in not only in Germany but in many regions, and to basically provide a small puzzle piece that's driving a better future. That's what drives me out of bed in the morning. So that doesn't mean like we wouldn't do business with US companies, but I would like, so my focus is and will always be to kind of contribute for the European economy, because I feel like a European citizen. And so I would, that's why I also see the current situation as a big chance, because it's so much easier for European startups these days to work with giant European enterprises. And because you have the advantage of being local. And these days it's considered now an advantage. That changed, and that's why I don't think it's necessary. And again, I'm speaking about B2B startups, not B2C.
I was just thinking about, like, we see OpenAI opening up their headquarter in Munich, and you're mentioning the locality as a competitive advantage if you're like a European company. But at the same time, as I said, we see those tech companies move into the European market, building up headquarters there in order to be also considered local maybe and compete with those smaller startups.
Yeah, but a US company, for instance, is not a US company. So we work very closely with Microsoft. And Microsoft as a company has changed over the past decades with their CEOs as well. And Satya Nadella,
It's not Steve Ballmer.
It's not Steve Ballmer. and he has changed Microsoft so much in the sense of staying open-minded, being a global company, taking care of European interests as well as they're taking care of US interests. So they're a global company, and they were one of the first tech companies on the planet to value European data protection. And so they have created infrastructure to cope with that, and they never complained publicly about the complex regulations. They have just worked with it and made their products available. But there are other companies that kind of don't care too much. Look at Google and how much they care about that. So I think from the hyperscalers and large tech companies, it's becoming a superpower how flexible they are in order to cope with regional regulation. And I think there are companies who do that well. They will remain global companies and provide services all over the place, or not, and then they can do business in the US only. And Europe is a market almost as a whole, almost as large as the US market. So the European market is relevant for all the American companies as well. And I feel the discussion is only single-sided. It only looks like we are so much dependent on the US. So we can be proud that also we're a relevant market to all of the US companies.
And maybe see our strength from that and build upon that, instead of like trying to create the next search engine to replace Google.
Yes, but we shouldn't try to, and that's a big mistake that was tried by the European politics in the past, like Gaia X. Why the heck now try to build something European which is replacing cloud Azure from Microsoft? That doesn't make sense. So let's anticipate what are the key technologies in 10 years from now.
And move ahead of the wave instead of like following. But I feel that we have like the even the proclaimed strategy of Volkswagen for a long time to be like a fast follower. It's like, see what technology will work out, and then quickly adapt that technology, put it into the cars, and then scale it through the distribution channels.
Yes, but Volkswagen is obviously not the only, let's say traditional automaker that was a bit surprised by the speed and agility on Tesla, BYD, now all the Chinese. And it's super interesting because for many, many years, Tesla was seen as the poster child for speed, agility, innovation. Now what we see in China, and then people laugh at Tesla, maybe because also what, based on what Elon Musk has done on a political level. But the problem is, in order to remain competitive in this super fast growing world, you need to reinvent yourself constantly. Even us, we're like a startup which is currently launched their product and is now going to market. We need to reinvent ourselves every quarter in order to remain competitive, because otherwise we will vanish as well, not even become.
Christian, thank you so much. We reached the end of today's episode. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for joining in on the episode. And talk to you very, very soon.
And again, thanks for having me, and I really like your podcast.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. I'd love to get your feedback on the episode and the overall podcast. I'm currently redesigning the whole thing, so you will be able to notice more and more things change along the way. It's not only the logo and the colors. Oh boy, I finally settled on a color. It's also that I will be partnering with an agency help me to produce the podcast. So with your help, that could be feedback or guest suggestions, we can make this thing finally look somewhat professional. Thank you so much.